Hello, I am Elisha Royal, and you are watching cEDH Evolved. I'm going to tell you a quick story. It is technically a tournament report because it took place at the Guardian Games cEDH tournament this Saturday, which was July the 5th. There we go. Got there. So the reason why the date was important is because it took me a little bit to get this review out. I normally put these reviews out right afterwards, and this tournament was a little bit different because I played two games, lost both, and dropped out. And why did I do that? Well, theoretically, I could play my last two games, which are, statistically against worse opponents, and every game's a fresh game. I could win those two and get a shot at, I think it was a cut to top 10. So, like, there was a good tournament argument in tournament perspective for me to go back and play those two games, but I didn't. Um, Quick rundown of the games. The first game, I had like a 60-minute turn and stormed off, and we're going to talk about that the majority of this review. In the second game, I was seat two, but there was just a shredder of a Derevi player in seat one who I play in the league with, who's in charge of the Derevi primer, I believe, and is an intriguing online personality. And I think they have a podcast. I should have their information. The dude's name is Clay. He's, again, a certified shredder. He was in seat one. I held back a little bit, threw a bounce his direction. The other players had some interaction, but he just overpowered us. Like he launched us from seat one through our interaction. So that was just game two. Not much to say about that. And after that, he did that pretty quickly. There was quite a gap in between, and I kind of hung around for a half hour, talked with the other dudes, thought about sticking around, which they encouraged me to do, and then ultimately did end up leaving. Game one, the storm, and kind of my experience there. So game one was with two dudes that are also well-known players. Played a lot of games with them. Good players, smart players. Can't argue that. Can't take that from them. One of them was running an off-meta deck because they forgot their deck of choice at home, which is unfortunate. Nobody likes to see a good player without their preferred tools. So they were playing Tiny Bones, but I was in seat four, and there was an unknown player in seat one, and then again seat two, certified shredder. I can't remember what they play, but they're a good player. They know what I'm up to as well. And most importantly, these two players have seen my storm shenanigans, and they know the interaction points. For the most part, they have good knowledge of the deck, and they're not going to get blindsided by my is my point. And they can coach other players through what to do if they're working together, right? To stop my deck. There's no surprise factor there. So seat one guy, turn one fish. I play slow. I hold back a turn. Other guys deploy. A rhystic comes out by player two, not the Tiny Bones player, but the other one. I can't remember again what meta deck he was playing. So there's a fish and a rhystic. I deploy a setup turn. I probably fed a card or two right there. And I believe that was my turn two. And then player one goes again for his turn three and deploys a rhystic on top of his fish, which he still has and is paid for, has a couple mana left over and passes. And player position two, can't remember exactly what they do with their turn. Tiny Bones still develops, and I now, with my turn three, perceive it this way. Excuse me, seat four, my turn three, I perceive the situation this way. I have the cards in hand in order to shoot my shot. Like, that's not like an unusual thing for my deck to do. It usually goes off turn 3 to 5. Okay. So I would like another prep turn. But I'm looking at the board and I'm thinking I'm not going to get there. There's going to be 3 turns before I can pop off. And at that point, there will be just cards have been fed by rhystic, and by these other players who are deploying value with those cards and then also giving opponents value. I don't want to be on that side of the equation. I'd rather be deploying my value and they can draw the rhysticks, and so if I can be in that position, that's better than another opponent, deploying their stuff into the rhystics first, and then creating a situation where I'm trying to deploy and they have the resources to stop me. So what I'm trying to say, gameplay note, really important. As soon as the rhystics and the mystics come down, you want to deploy first. You don't want to deploy second. So everybody's like, let's play around the mystics and rhystics. You actually want to dive right in because it's never going to get better. It's just not. That's my perspective. It's just not. Once they're down, they're not going anywhere. I had 2 bounces in hand, and there's a Grafdigger's Cage out. I top deck cast, and that's how I storm. And so, that's a problem. I have limited bounces here. How do I deal with this? I can deal with one of the draw engines. I can deal with the Grafdiggers. What ended up happening was I threw the first bounce over at the Rhystic of the person that also had the Mystic Remora that was in first seat. Okay, so I threw that over there because they also, I believe, had the most mana up. Would be the biggest problem, and it got countered. Okay, it is what it is. I got one more bounce in hand. It's like, do I throw that at the Rhystic, or do I save that for the Grafdiggers? But I don't need to use it right now, and so technically, gameplay speaking, I probably should have tossed it. But here's the trade-off. I also need that mana for the storm, and so if I throw it at the Grafdiggers right now, because I don't want them to get more cards that would allow them to stop the bounce later, I might kind of stall my engine at the beginning, where it's like I get some unlucky draws, and those 2 mana for that bounce really matter. So I didn't throw it. I have that bounce in hand, which I ended up throwing later. In order to try and save my Drafna, which was a part of a Drafna Thought Monitor loop where Drafna lets you return artifacts to hand. Thought Monitor, when it ETBs, it's an artifact creature that lets you draw 2. And so I had enough artifacts. It has affinity for them. So I'm paying 1 mana to play this thing and then draw 2 cards. And then it's 2 mana to send them back to hand. And I also had an intruder alarm, which every time a creature comes in, you untap all creatures. And so I had 4 artifact creatures. I'm doing that loop. I'm creating mana from the 4 artifact creatures. I'm spending 2 of it in order to send the Thought Monitor back to hand, spending 1 mana to go and cast them again, and I can tap that Thought Monitor for mana as well. And I'm trying to pay for the Mystics and the Rhystics where I can, while also getting my engine going, while drawing these cards, while also trying to fend off this interaction, and that process goes on for an hour. But my deck is filled with Flash Enablers, which means that once I have one of those down, it's really hard to interact with me. I just play over the top. It's like, okay, well, I play my key card and you throw a counter at it, or maybe you draw a piece of removal for Urza. Well, I just flash useless cards over the top until I hit another key card, at which point, that game continues until you run out of ways to do that. And the flash mechanics kind of work, and then I can just because eventually I can pay for the Rhystics, eventually I can do this and that, and the flash speed really is the general purpose problem solver. I just was unlucky and I didn't get one in that instance, and they had the right interaction at the right time, and things went unlucky. But I've been in many games where that combo goes off. I've made game actions, solid ones, drawing cards, comboing off, making mana, doing my thing, storming for a full 60 minutes, which player 2 at some point was like, can you play faster? And I'm like, I think I'm going pretty quick, which I was, but there's a lot of interaction points and people are forcing me to pause. And so I'm sitting here looking at the Tiny Bones player who's looking at me, and the other 2 players are talking, and I'm like, intruder alarm on the stack. And they're over here, talking about it. And eventually, player 4, player 3, the Tiny Bones player just announces the trigger, for the other 2 players as a sign that I'm good to go. They're not paying attention. Let's just do this thing. And so it evolved that level of slow down, but I'm on top of my triggers. I'm going fast, and because every time they're debating, it gives me time to think about the next 3 steps, and it's not that complicated. I goldfish this thing all the time, so I'm playing quick. And so the other person's like, well, you've been playing for a full 60 minutes, and I was just like, you can call a judge. I'm I already made my case. I'm playing fast. And well, you've been playing a full 60 minutes. I'm like, that's just how the game is. You can call a judge. They did not. And so I'm doing this thing, and that's all for me to just say, I had a genuine chance of winning. In my mind, I did. And I know that because, again, past experiences and knowledge of the deck and the presence of flash enablers, is the connecting piece between my knowledge of past games and what could have happened, in the deck in that game. It's just a good case. And again, let's go back to the premise of I'm in seat number 4, lowest win percentage by far, chance wise, against 2 players that I know are very good, and an unknown player with a Mystic and a Rhystic already deployed going into it would be his turn 4. Okay. So he's going into his turn 4. That's a really bad position. That's not a win. Does my win percentage, do you think, go up or down if I choose to shoot right now? do I have a 15% chance of getting that through? And let's say they all play their turn 4 and then I get to my turn 4. Do I have a 15% chance of winning? Probably not. So it's like, even if the chances are that low in that moment, it's still worth it to shoot the shot. And, I would say that I had an even greater than 15% chance. But I'm just saying that that is the threshold for argument, for another person to say you should or should not have done that. Did that person think that there was a 15% chance of getting it through? And is that a reasonable number, to put on fourth seat after everybody puts, given the board state in that moment? It's like, yeah, I would say, a player 4, after they play their turn 4, their turn 4, their turn 4, comes up on me. It's like, if somebody hasn't already won the game there, it's like, do I now have a chance in the game where there's been so many cards exchanged because they got to deploy their draw engines and I don't have any? I think that my, due to the deck structure, I don't have a way to grind it out and get back in. I don't run Mystic or Rhystic. I'm not tutoring for 2 card combos and backing it up with a counter spell, so I can't wait for it and shoot a gap like that. It's just, that's the downside of the deck. But my point is, it makes sense to shoot that shot, due to all of my, knowledge of playing this one deck. That's all I play. And so I do that to the absolute, I'm trying to find the right word for it. I'm just going to use disappointment, to the disappointment of the 2 players that I play with regularly, semi-regularly, who I've played with, over the course of years, multiple times with, right? A good number of games, maybe a dozen each, right? Let's put it that way. Not that I play with them all the time. We just run across each other. It's a small cEDH scene in Portland. Okay, so anyways, they know what I'm doing. They're disappointed that I'm feeding into this Mystic and Rhystic, and I would be remiss if I did not, I believe that's the right word, mention that the player 1 had a Heartstone and a legendary creature, and I'm hoping that I get that right. The rock that costs 3 mana, where a legendary creature can be tapped 4 mana, right? And so Intruder Alarm is coming in and generating him 1 mana. It's generating me 4, and I'm drawing 2 cards off this loop, but he is getting 1 mana. And he's drawing off the Rhystics that I can't pay for. And again, there's a fish, which I'm not paying, but again, this is a creature that I'm looping, so that's really cool. A Rhystic, and then there's a second Rhystic over there. So it's like I'm selectively paying for this and that. And maybe there's an optimized way to do that I didn't see at the time, but I did split it in between the 2 players. And ultimately, anyways, so that goes on. I don't get there. I end up passing turn, and of course, the next person who just drew a whole bunch of cards, they wrap it up. And immediately, before the game is even ended, at this point, it's pretty much wrapped up, and they're just yelling at me, basically. And I described it to another friend who I didn't think about this at the time, just said that's just straight up bullying, which it was. About that play decision, what I had just done, saying I pitched the game, saying it was this and that. And ultimately, after I'd made my argument, the Tiny Bones player said it was just delusional. Which, after the argument that I just made, you might not agree and might not agree with my perspective and think it is indeed delusional. But he's like, what it gets down to is they're like, you're feeding a Mystic and a Rhystic and an Intruder Alarm, and there's no way that you could possibly get through. And I understand that perspective, and they could say that they've never seen me do it before, and because that was the argument that I initially made, is like, dude, I've done this before and it's worked, and it's like my record kind of stands for itself. And Tiny Bones players like, but you don't win games. And I'm like, and so I pointed out, I'm like, so the league that we both play in, I pointed out as a point of reference, because it's filled with great players that he'd be familiar with because he competes in it. I'm like, the league that you play in, I'm like, I prize out consistently in it, top 10 prizes out, and there's something like 30 players consistently, something like that. So it's like, I'm not out there just losing. I'm playing enough games in order to show up on the stats board and then maintaining that for a period of months and ultimately prizing out near the bottom. Fair enough, but I'm not one of the worst players. There is my point. And you could say I'm probably just middle of the pack, but I'm not out there just losing games over and over. Is my point. Is like, and you can just point at that as a stats thing. It's like, it's not a matter of opinion. Doesn't want to hear it. And it just says, no, you don't win games. And it's because apparently if they haven't personally seen it, it doesn't count. Whatever. Player 2 over there is giving basically the same kind of argument. And at that point, I'm just like, I don't care. I don't care. Stop talking to me about it. We're at a tournament. You're over here criticizing my play. Game is wrapped up at this point. I started packing up my cards halfway through this dude's loop, which you probably shouldn't have done, but I, legit thought it was over. But the point was, player two over here criticizing my play and the same kind of train of thought there. You never had a chance. I had all this stuff in hand. You couldn't have gotten through. I had all these counter spells, blah, 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 whatever. Sometimes it gets through, sometimes it doesn't. You had the stuff. Again, 15% threshold, right? And again, it's a matter of opinion. And here's the point. You guys don't get to just like criticize and again, harass people over their game plan and call them delusional in a cEDH game. When they were especially when they're taking game actions for 60 minutes, drawing to in this loop, that's presented. It seems like such an obvious thing to me, but they don't get it. And so ultimately, I told them like, stop talking to me. And player two is like, okay, I won't talk to you. I'll just talk to the other players. I'm like, cool, sweet. And ignored him, and then he wanders off 30 seconds later. And then the other player, we had that exchange, and then I'm like, okay, whatever. I just ignore them, and they go off, do something, come back, and we just sit in silence for until the next round starts. And I go and I play that, and I get stookied on by a great player, already and not in a great mindset, and I dropped out after that, which I shouldn't have done. I got tilted, I let them tilt me, and afterward I go and I report back, and the consensus was like, I can go on the Discord and I can read it. It was basically like, you don't take it too hard, right? And so this is what I said in the moment. I said, I'm lame. I think I'm a drop. Not thinking any deck changes. Maybe just one more flash enabler. That would have wrapped up the first game. I just never draw them. Probably a sign we need more. I don't know. I had an off day today, and I did add 2 more flash enablers, which might be too many now, but it seems that I need them more. I'll just read up the thing because I had a couple more comments on it in the moment. So it said, game 1 loss. They blame me hard for storming off into a rhystic for 60 minutes, but I almost made it. I was in seat 4, turn 3, and needed to shoot before the game turned into mid-range hell. There was a graph diggers that was a problem, but ultimately they drew too many answers, even though I was paying for them later in the storm. Sometimes we make it, sometimes we get blamed for pitching the game. And then I reported back, game 2 loss. Player in seat 1 just had too strong of a start. I was seat 2 with a great setup, threw a bounce, but we didn't have enough. Then I read what I said. And this was what the community came back and said, which, again, I did need to hear at the time. It said, oh, man, don't be so down. Base win rate in cEDH is 25%. You can't have all the answers, and you can't expect to win all the time. Even an awesome deck is likely to lose twice in a row versus good opponents, which, is true. I said, thank you. Needed to hear that. The other person said, don't listen to the haters. You did what you had to do. I said, yeah, okay, drafting a thought monitor. Anyways, but that's more or less what there is to report about that tournament. But it did, it hurt my feelings a little bit. I didn't like that. And it's like, does it sound kind of lame to say that? Yeah, but ultimately it's like, I don't like that kind of behavior. I want to be able to play my deck in the way that I play it, even if it's not optimal in somebody else's mind, and not receive that level of criticism. It's just like, we're in a tournament, take your L and go. And I think that the Overton window, of acceptable rhetoric, within a tournament setting, should be pretty small. It's like, if I'm meeting up with you on a Saturday and we're sitting at a table over here having a good time with playing cEDH, not TDH. That's kind of the distinction here, cEDH versus TDH. It's like, yeah, you can come and bring that up over hanging out in the league. Cool, but it's like, I go to the league and I go to the tournaments for curated games where it's just like, I get to test my thing, no holds bar, and optimize it and do that, and do the limit testing, and not like, there's no it's a curated pod. There should, I can receive the level of chatter that I want. And so I don't really feel bad about being like, don't talk to me about it. Like, I don't want to hear your criticism, and especially not the way that you're presenting it, calling me delusional, being like, the 3 of us think that you're wrong. Again, the guy in the first seat heard that. It was kind of like, I'm not going to say don't speak to me, but he's like, no, you were doing things. Good job. Good game. You were, almost there, almost had it. Because again, they're having to toss interaction over and over, and they almost didn't have it. Like, there were times where I put something down that was a problem. We're like, oh shoot, I don't have anything for that, and almost got there. 1 flash enabler short of, I think, like 6 or 7 at the time. Now I got like 8 or like 7 or 8. So yeah, not much more to say there. But let's treat each other more nicely during these tournaments. It's like, what do I do? It's like, do I call a judge over post tournament and be like, these guys are criticizing the way that I played the game? It's like, you can't really do that, right? So like, so again, the Overton window is like large enough right now. It's acceptable to just like kind of shit on people for what they do, and it shouldn't be that way, I think, is what I'm getting at. Didn't make me feel good. I thought that what I was doing was logical, and if you disagree, you can present it that way, but don't come at me with the word delusional and then, kind of be the other guy who's like, okay, I'll just stand here and shit talk you, in front of your face to the other guys. Like, that's not cool either, I guess. just take your L and move on. Have a disagreement. You know, even if I never tell anybody what I'll politic in game, but I don't tell anybody what they should or should not be doing at all. Everybody gets to play the game they want to. All right. Hey, you see this Final Fantasy gift bundle? I want to give this away to one of you. And then I also got this MagicCon 2025 mat. It's signed by the Cam and Dylan from the Play to Win channel. Yeah, I'm not super attached to it. So I want to give both of those away. I'm not really a person that opens packs, but I had some dollars in exchange credit, so I picked up a gift bundle. It was a decent deal. So let's try and get enough people on the channel in order to justify doing a giveaway. So it's not like, hey, I'm just going to give this to like 1 to 20 people. Yeah, that would be kind of sweet because it's like you guys are part of like the initial crew. Maybe I will give one of these away to the first bit of you. We're at like what 115, 116 subscribers. Let's try and boost that up to 200. I'll give one of these away, and then we'll try and hit like 600. I don't know, 7. We'll hit 1,000. How about 1,000? We'll give away the Final Fantasy box, which at that point, the Final Fantasy box will probably be like a pretty decent like value at that point, I guess, because it'll take a bit to hit 1,000. I hope not. If we wake up tomorrow, it'll still be, sorry, but and it's 1,000, sorry, but yeah, hopefully, well, I guess you still get it, and you can hold on to it until that time. All right, I'm going to stop rambling here. I want to give these things away. I just wanted to get them on screen for a second. That's all the rambling so long. But yeah, thanks for listening to this like half-baked tournament review that wasn't really a tournament review because I only played 2 games. Yeah, but I'll do better next time. All right, take it easy, everybody.